The blue-white marble of Earth looked small from the observation deck of Luna Station. Commander Jack Wilson stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the alien ships depart. Their strange crystalline structures caught the sunlight as they moved beyond the orbit of the moon, heading for the stars that were forever barred to humanity now. "They think they've caged us," Jack said softly. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Lisa Martinez, stood beside him. She was shorter than him by a head, but her presence filled the room. "Yes, sir," she said. Her eyes never left the departing ships. "They don't understand what humans do when backed into a corner." 5 years ago, the Galactic Council had made first contact with Earth. 17 alien species, each more advanced than humans, had formed a federation that controlled most of the known galaxy. They had watched Earth for decades before deciding to reveal themselves. Today, they had delivered their final judgment. Humanity was too dangerous to join them. Too unpredictable, too aggressive, too innovative. The Council feared what humans might become if given access to the stars. The decree was simple and harsh. Humanity would be confined to their solar system. Automated defense platforms were already being positioned at key points in space. Any human ship that tried to leave would be destroyed without warning. The aliens allowed humans to keep their colonies on Mars and the Moon, but nothing more. Jack turned away from the window. "What's the status of our fleet?" Lisa checked her tablet. "All ships accounted for, sir. The aliens didn't touch our military assets, they just left us here." Jack nodded. The aliens hadn't needed to destroy Earth's ships. Their technology was so far beyond human capabilities that Earth's best weapons would barely scratch their smallest vessels. It was like a wolf worrying about a newborn kitten's claws. "The Secretary General is addressing the United Nations in an hour," Lisa said. "They're expecting riots in some cities when people fully understand what this means." Jack could imagine. Humanity had just been told they were prisoners in their own solar system. Forever. "Have the science team meet me in conference room A in 15 minutes, Jack ordered. "And get me a direct line to Dr. Hayes at Pacific Research Station." Lisa raised an eyebrow but didn't question the order. "Yes, sir." On Earth, in a deep underwater facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Alan Hayes watched the same alien ships disappear into the darkness of space. His laboratory was crowded with the brightest minds in quantum physics, all silent as the historic moment played out on their screens. "They gave us just enough to make us realize how little we know," Alan said, breaking the silence. He gestured to the experimental quantum drive in the center of the lab. It was based on technology the aliens had shared during the brief period when they were evaluating humanity. Before they decided humans weren't ready, his assistant, Olivia Clark, looked up from her workstation. At 28, she was the youngest person on the team, but possibly the most brilliant. "They might have made a mistake," she said, "giving us even a glimpse of how their tech works." Alan smiled. Olivia always saw possibilities where others saw dead ends. "Maybe, but we'd need decades to reverse engineer anything useful from the scraps they left us." His secure line beeped. "Dr. Hayes, secure call from Luna Station." Alan picked up the receiver. "Hayes here." "Doctor, this is Commander Wilson. I think we need to talk about options." Alan looked around his lab. "What kind of options, Commander?" "The kind that aren't in any official reports," Wilson replied. "I'm putting together a team, people who aren't willing to accept this situation as permanent." Alan understood immediately. That would violate the Council's decree. They were very clear about the consequences. Yes, they were. But they also don't know humans very well if they think we'll just accept this. "Can I count on you?" Alan thought about his research, about the anomalies they'd detected in the quantum field that didn't match what the aliens had told them should be possible. "Yes, but we'll need resources and secrecy. You'll have both. We're calling it the Initiative. Officially, it doesn't exist." In Washington, D.C., Ambassador Susan Miller stood before the United Nations Security Council. Her face showed the strain of 5 years of failed diplomacy. "I want to be clear," she said, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "The Council's decision is final. All our appeals were rejected. Humanity has been judged and found concerning. The room erupted in angry shouts and questions. Susan waited for order to be restored. The aliens believe we are too unpredictable, too quick to violence, too innovative in ways they find disturbing. They acknowledge our potential, and that's exactly what frightens them. The Russian representative stood. And we simply accept this? We are prisoners now? Susan sighed. For now we have no choice. Their technology is centuries beyond ours. Any resistance would be crushed immediately. What Susan didn't say was that she had already spoken with certain government leaders about alternatives, about a project that would operate in absolute secrecy, with resources from all major powers pooled together. The initiative would ensure humanity's survival and eventual freedom, by any means necessary. 6 months later, in a hidden facility beneath the Atacama Desert, representatives from Earth's most powerful nations gathered. Military leaders, scientists, engineers, and diplomats, all chosen for their skills and their unwillingness to accept humanity's confinement. Commander Wilson stood before them. The Council thinks they know us. They think they've studied us, enough to predict what we'll do. He smiled. They're wrong. He revealed the first designs for ships that would be built in secret, for research into technologies the aliens claimed were impossible, for a plan that would take decades to implement, but would eventually lead humanity beyond their prison. We can't fight them directly, Wilson explained. But we can be smarter. We can be patient. We can do what humans have always done when faced with impossible odds. We find another way. Dr. Hayes presented his team's findings. Subtle inconsistencies in the alien data that suggested they hadn't shared the whole truth about how the universe worked. They've underestimated us, he concluded, and that will be their mistake. As the meeting ended, Olivia Clark approached Wilson with a datapad. Sir, I've been running simulations based on Dr. Hayes's latest findings. I think we might have found a way to travel faster than light without using the conventional methods the aliens would detect. Wilson studied the young physicist. How confident are you? Olivia didn't hesitate. Enough to bet my life on it, and the lives of everyone here. Wilson nodded slowly. Then that's where we start. And so, as the alien defense platforms settled into their orbits around Earth's solar system, thinking their task complete, humanity began the long, secret work of breaking free, not with violence or force, but with the very qualities the Council feared: human ingenuity, determination, and the absolute refusal to accept imprisonment no matter how vast the cage. 10 years passed since the Galactic Council had confined humanity to their solar system. On the surface, Earth's nations had accepted their fate. They built up their colonies on Mars and the Moon, developed their mining operations in the asteroid belt, and tried to make the most of their cosmic prison. But deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in the expanded research facility now simply called the Deep, Dr. Alan Hayes and his team worked tirelessly on their secret project. The original laboratory had grown into a sprawling underwater complex, hidden from the occasional alien inspection ships that monitored Earth's compliance. Olivia Clark, now the head of the Quantum Physics Division, stared at the readings on her screen. The test chamber behind the thick glass wall pulsed with a soft blue light as the experimental drive activated. There it is again, she said, pointing to a spike in the data. That shouldn't be possible according to the equations the Council provided. Alan moved closer to examine the readings. In the decades since the banishment, his hair had turned gray, but his eyes remained sharp and focused. They lied to us, he said quietly. Or at least they didn't tell us everything. The quantum field could be manipulated in ways the aliens had claimed were impossible, ways that opened up possibilities for faster-than-light travel without using the conventional drive systems that would trigger the Council's barrier sensors. We need to run the test again with the new calibrations, Olivia said, already typing commands into the system. If this works, we could bypass their entire defense network. Alan nodded. Contact Commander Wilson, he needs to see this. Commander Wilson was now Director Wilson of the initiative. The secret organization had grown steadily over the past decade, recruiting the brightest minds and most capable operators from around the world. Hidden bases had been established throughout the solar system, inside hollowed-out asteroids, beneath the surface of Saturn's moons, and in the shadows of Neptune's rings. Far from the prying eyes of the Council's observers, Wilson arrived at the deep 24 hours later, traveling in a supply submarine that officially carried equipment for the underwater mining operations in the Marianas Trench. "Show me," he said simply when he entered the quantum lab. Olivia activated the drive. The blue light pulsed, and for a brief moment, a small metal sphere in the test chamber seemed to flicker, as if it existed in two places at once. "It's not technically faster than light travel," Alan explained. "It's more like stepping outside of normal space briefly and then back in. The Council's sensors are designed to detect conventional propulsion and the energy signatures of traditional FTL drives." "Will this work on a larger scale?" Wilson asked, his eyes fixed on the test chamber. "That's what we need to find out," Olivia replied. "We've designed a prototype vessel, but we need resources to build it." Wilson smiled slightly. "Resources aren't a problem. In the decade since the Council's decree, the initiative had been busy in other ways. Hidden shipyards had been constructed inside asteroids and hollowed-out moons. Using resources harvested from the outer solar system, they had built vessels designed never to be seen. On Mars Colony, in a facility buried beneath the surface of Olympus Mons, engineer Diane Ross had been perfecting a new type of stealth technology. Her team worked with metals and composites that absorbed sensor scans rather than reflecting them. When Alan and Olivia arrived at the Mars facility, Diane greeted them at the airlock. She was tall and lean from a lifetime in Martian gravity, with dark skin and bright eyes that missed nothing. "So you're the quantum genius I've heard so much about," she said to Olivia. "Let's see if we can make your math work in the real world." The prototype ship, designated Ghost, was barely large, enough for a crew of 4. Its hull was made of the special materials Diane's team had developed, and at its heart was a scaled-up version of the quantum drive from the deep. "It's not much to look at," Diane admitted as they toured the small craft. "But if it works, it will be the first human vessel to leave the solar system since the Council's barriers went up." 3 months of testing followed. The Ghost made short jumps within the Mars system, always careful to avoid detection. Each test proved the concept worked, but the real challenge would be crossing the barrier. When Wilson selected pilot Kevin Foster to attempt the crossing, the young officer didn't hesitate. Kevin had been born 2 years after the Council's decree. He had never known a world where humanity wasn't imprisoned, and he had joined the initiative as soon as he was old enough. "If I don't make it back," he told Wilson the night before the mission, "make sure it wasn't for nothing." The launch was scheduled during a solar flare when the Council's sensors would be partially disrupted by the increased radiation. The Ghost departed from the hidden facility, climbing quickly through the thin Martian atmosphere. In mission control, Alan, Olivia, and Diane watched the ship's progress on their screens. Wilson stood behind them, his face expressionless. "Approaching the barrier," Kevin's voice came through the speakers. "No sign they've detected me yet." The barrier was an invisible line, marked only by the positions of the Council's automated defense platforms. Cross that line in a conventional ship, and those platforms would instantly destroy the vessel. "Activating quantum drive," Kevin reported. The signal became distorted as the drive powered up. "If this works, I'll be back in 8 hours with samples from beyond the barrier." The Ghost signature flickered on their screens, then disappeared entirely. "Did it work?" Wilson asked, leaning forward. "We won't know until he comes back," Olivia replied, her eyes fixed on the blank screen. "Or doesn't." The longest 8 hours in human history followed. In mission control, no one left their posts. Technicians monitored the barrier for any sign the Council had detected the crossing. Scientists analyzed the last data transmitted from the Ghost before it vanished. 7 hours and 46 minutes after disappearance, a faint signal appeared on their screens. "This is Ghost, requesting landing clearance." Kevin's voice came through, tired but triumphant. "Mission accomplished. I've got rocks from the Alpha Centauri system that have never been touched by human hands before. The room erupted in cheers. Alan and Olivia embraced, while Diane wiped tears from her eyes. Wilson simply nodded, a small smile on his face. As the ghost settled into the hidden hangar, humanity had taken its first step beyond their prison. The stones Kevin brought back were ordinary, simple rocks from a barren planet orbiting Alpha Centauri, but they represented something extraordinary. What now? Olivia asked Wilson as they waited for Kevin to complete the landing procedures. Wilson looked at the small spacecraft, already planning the next mission. Now we build more ships, bigger ones. We find places out there where we can establish footholds, and we do it all without the Council ever knowing we've slipped their leash. The ghost had lived up to its name, passing through the Council's barriers like a phantom. It was just the beginning. Humanity would become ghosts among the stars, invisible to those who sought to contain them, building their strength in secret until they were ready to emerge from the shadows. 15 years after the ghost's historic flight beyond the barrier, humanity's secret expansion had grown beyond anyone's early expectations. The first extrasolar colony, Haven, was now home to nearly 10,000 people. Built on a planet in a system deliberately chosen to be uninteresting to the Council races, it was a small beginning but a significant one. Eric Powell stood on the observation deck of the colony's main hub, watching families work in the community gardens. As governor of Haven, he had overseen its growth from a small research outpost to a thriving settlement. The planet's slightly higher gravity and longer days had been challenging at first, but humans adapted. They always did. "Governor, the supply ship from Libertas has arrived," his assistant said, entering the room. Libertas was the second colony, established 5 years after Haven. 2 more colonies had followed, New Horizon and Defiance. Each was carefully hidden, each designed to be self-sufficient. "Any news from Earth?" Eric asked. "Yes, sir. The Initiative Council has approved the expansion of our manufacturing center." Eric nodded. The Initiative, now operating as a shadow government coordinating Earth's major powers, had established stringent protocols for all colonies. No electromagnetic communications that could be detected. No large-scale operations that might attract attention. Every colony was designed to be able to disappear at a moment's notice. Back on Earth, Alice Nguyen, now president of the United North American Alliance, maintained the facade of a species resigned to its fate. When alien inspectors visited, they found a humanity focused inward, developing their solar system, addressing climate change, seemingly accepting their limitations. The inspectors never discovered the quantum communication network linking Earth to its secret colonies, or the massive resource operations hidden in the darkness beyond Neptune. On Defiance, the newest and most distant colony, a discovery changed everything. An exploration team led by Captain Nathan Reed found an abandoned outpost belonging to a species unknown to the Council. The structure was ancient, at least 1,000 years old, but its systems were still partially functional. "We think it was some kind of monitoring station," Nathan explained to Admiral Paul Bennett, who had traveled from Earth to see the discovery firsthand. "The technology is strange, but our science team has made progress deciphering it." Bennett ran a hand along the alien console. Unlike the crystalline technology of the Council races, this was organic, almost alive. "And you're sure it doesn't belong to any of the Council species?" "Positive, sir. The database we recovered contains information about regions of space the Council has declared off limits, and references to species that aren't part of the Council." Bennett's expression remained neutral, but his mind raced with possibilities. "They're not the only game in town," he said quietly. "And not everyone out there agrees with their policies." The database held more than star maps. It contained records of Council decisions dating back centuries, including other species that had been confined to their home systems. Some had eventually been granted membership. Others remained imprisoned, and a few had apparently been wiped out after attempting rebellion. But most intriguing were references to species that existed outside Council space entirely. Races that had either never been discovered or had deliberately isolated themselves from Council politics. We need to find these other species, Bennett decided. Potential allies. The search took 3 years of careful exploration. Many leads were dead ends, civilizations long gone or planets now empty. But in a dense nebula that interfered with most scanning technologies, they found the Nexari. First contact was tense. The Nexari, insectoid beings with a complex hive structure, had hidden from the Council for millennia. Their ships surrounded the human vessel, weapons ready. "We mean no harm," Communications Officer Sarah Kelly broadcast as the first contact. Protocol dictated. "We seek friendship and exchange of knowledge." The Nexari ship's response was unexpected. "You are the imprisoned ones," came the reply in rough but understandable English. "The ones who refuse to stay in your cage." The Nexari, it turned out, had been observing humanity for decades. They knew of the Council's decree and had watched with interest as humans secretly expanded beyond their solar system. "Your species adapts quickly," the Nexari ambassador explained when formal relations were established. "We build our societies for stability and endurance. We have technologies your people would find valuable, but we lack your creativity." It was the beginning of what would become the Alliance of Independent Species. The Nexari had technologies complementary to human innovations. Their ships were virtually undetectable to Council sensors, while human quantum drives were faster and more efficient than Nexari propulsion systems. "This changes everything," Bennett told the Initiative Council upon his return to Earth. "We're not alone in opposing the Council's authority. With the Nexari's help, we can expand much faster, much more safely. The exchange of technology and knowledge accelerated human development beyond what would have been possible alone. Nexari medical science helped humans adapt more quickly to alien environments. Human AI systems helped Nexari ships navigate the quantum slipstreams that the Ghost had first pioneered. On Earth, most of humanity still had no idea what was happening beyond their solar system. Only a small percentage knew of the colonies, and fewer still knew of the Nexari. The secret had to be kept. The Council's punishment for defiance would be swift and merciless if they discovered the truth. But as the years passed, the Shadow Empire grew. A third species joined the alliance, the Doru, crystalline beings who had fled Council space after a dispute centuries before. Then a fourth, the Vrel, who had never been discovered by the Council due to their planet's unique properties that masked life signs. "We have achieved more in 30 years than I thought possible," Bennett confessed to Eric Powell, now the senior governor coordinating all human colonies. "But we can't stay hidden forever. Sooner or later, the Council will discover us." "And when they do?" Eric asked. Bennett looked out at the stars visible from Defiance's observation deck. "When they do, they'll find we're not the same species they imprisoned 30 years ago. We're stronger, we have allies, and we know much more about them than they realize." A message interrupted their conversation, a priority alert from a border outpost. A Council patrol had been detected near one of the human mining operations. The operation was supposed to be hidden, but something had drawn the aliens' attention. "And so it begins," Bennett said, reading the report. "Inform all colonies to activate security protocols and send a message to the Nexari. It's time to see if our alliance holds in the face of real danger." As the alert spread across human space and to their alien allies, 30 years of preparation were about to be tested. Humanity had built something remarkable in secret. Not just colonies, but a true civilization among the stars, with friends and allies the Council had never imagined possible. The coming conflict would determine whether they had built enough, learned enough, and grown enough to stand against the power that had once caged them. The Council patrol ship discovered the human mining operation in what should have been an empty system. The small outpost had only 12 workers, mining rare minerals from an asteroid belt. They had less than 10 minutes warning before the alien vessel arrived. "Evacuation protocol activated," the outpost's AI announced. The miners dropped their equipment and ran for the emergency shuttle. They had drilled for this moment countless times but never expected it to happen. The shuttle launched just as the Council ship entered scanner range. It wasn't fast enough. The alien vessel fired a single shot, destroying the mining equipment. Left behind then turned its attention to the fleeing humans. Quantum jump in 5 seconds, the shuttle pilot Sam Morgan told his passengers. The small craft's drive powered up, creating the familiar blue glow. The council ship fired again, but the beam passed through empty space. The shuttle had vanished. On Defiance Colony, now the unofficial capital of human space, Admiral Bennett received the news with grim resignation. "Any casualties?" he asked the communications officer. "No, sir. All personnel accounted for, but..." The council ship tracked their quantum signature for at least part of their jump. They didn't make it directly to New Horizon as planned. Bennett nodded slowly. The shuttle had been forced to make multiple jumps to throw off pursuit, but the damage was done. The council now had proof that humans had broken their confinement. "Call the governing council," Bennett ordered. "All members, highest priority." The bow. 12 leaders of humanity's secret expansion gathered virtually within the hour. Governor Eric Powell from Haven, Dr. Olivia Clark, now head of all scientific development, General Maria Rivera, commander of the Human Defense Forces, representatives from Earth's major powers who still maintain the pretense of compliance, and Admiral Bennett himself. "We always knew this day would come," Bennett began. "The question now is how we respond." The debate was heated. Some, like General Rivera, argued that humanity was strong enough to stand its ground. "We have 50 colony ships ready to evacuate Earth if needed. We have the Nexari and 3 other species as allies. We should face the Council directly." Others, like Powell, advocated for continued secrecy and strategic withdrawal from exposed positions. "We're not ready for open conflict. The Council controls thousands of worlds. We have 4 colonies and a handful of allies." The debate became moot when urgent news arrived from New Horizon. Council forces had tracked the shuttle's path despite the multiple jumps. A fleet of Council ships had arrived in the system. "They're demanding the colony surrender," the message reported. "They've given us 6 hours before they attack." Bennett's decision was immediate. Evacuate New Horizon. All personnel, all essential equipment. Leave nothing of value for them to find. The evacuation had barely begun when the Council fleet, impatient for a response, opened fire. The colony's shields, based on Nexari technology, held long enough for most ships to escape, but not all. 3 transport vessels carrying nearly 1,000 colonists were destroyed. The message from the Council was clear. The punishment for defying banishment would be extinction. News of the attack spread quickly through the Alliance network. The Yao. Nexari responded first, sending a fleet of their invisible hive ships to protect Defiance. The Doru and Vrel followed, moving their forces to defensive positions around the remaining human colonies. "This changes everything," Bennett told the emergency session of the Governing Council. "We can no longer hide. We must either fight or surrender." Earth, still officially ignorant of the colonies, received a harsh message from the Council. Comply with the original terms of confinement, recall all illegal settlements, or face the consequences. The Council gave Earth's governments 48 hours to respond. President Gregory Johnson of the North American Alliance, who had secretly supported the initiative for years, faced the most difficult decision of his life. Publicly admit the truth and face the Council's wrath, or deny knowledge of the colonies and abandon them to their fate. "The time for hiding is over," he told his advisors in a secure underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. "We either stand with our people among the stars, or we betray everything humanity has accomplished." When Johnson addressed the United Nations, revealing the truth for the first time, the reaction was mixed: shock, anger, fear, but also pride. Humanity had not only escaped its prison, but had built something new among the stars. "We will not apologize for seeking our freedom," Johnson declared. "We have broken no moral law. We have harmed no one. We have simply refused to accept imprisonment." As he spoke, Alliance ships were already moving to defensive positions throughout human space. The Nexari brought their advanced shield technology. The Doru contributed their crystal weapons, capable of cutting through Council ship armor. The AWI Vrel added their expertise in stealth and deception. When Council representatives arrived at Earth to demand surrender and compliance, They were met with an unexpected sight. In orbit above the planet, a fleet of Alliance ships, the combined forces of 5 species that had chosen to stand with humanity against the Council's authority. "We will not negotiate the terms of our imprisonment," Johnson told the Council, emissaries from the orbital platform where they met. "We offer you peace as equals or we offer you war. The choice is yours." The Council had never faced such defiance. Their power had gone unchallenged for millennia. They had expected humans to beg for mercy, to offer surrender. Instead, they found unity and resolve. "This is your final warning," the lead Council representative said, its crystalline form shimmering with anger. "Return to your solar system, dismantle your colonies, end your alliances with these outcast species, or we will end you." Johnson looked to Admiral Bennett, who stood at his side, then back to the alien. "You tried to cage something you didn't understand," he said calmly. "That was your mistake." The Council representatives departed with no further words. Within days, reports came from the borders of human space. Council warships were gathering in unprecedented numbers. The Battle of New Horizon had been just a small preview. The real war was about to begin. On Defiance, Admiral Bennett addressed the combined forces of the Alliance, human ships alongside vessels from 4 other species, all united against the Council's authority. "They believe their technology is superior," he told the assembled officers. "They believe their numbers will overwhelm us. They believe we will break under pressure." He smiled slightly. "They were wrong about us 30 years ago. They're wrong about us now." As the massive Council fleet approached, humanity prepared for the greatest challenge in its history. Not just to defend its hard-won freedom, but to change the galaxy itself. The qualities that had frightened the Council, human adaptability, determination, and innovation, were about to be tested as never before. The war that followed was not the quick subjugation the Council had expected. The first battle occurred in the empty system where New Horizon once stood. The Council fleet arrived in force, expecting to find a weakened enemy still reeling from the destruction of their colony. Instead, they found an Alliance ambush. Human ships with their quantum drives appeared seemingly out of nowhere, striking hard and fast before disappearing again. Nexari hive ships remained invisible until the moment they fired their weapons. Doru crystal ships absorbed energy attacks and reflected them back with doubled power. Admiral Bennett watched the battle from the command deck of the Alliance flagship Guardian. His strategy was not to defeat the vastly larger Council fleet, but to demonstrate that victory would not come easily. "They've lost 23 ships," his tactical officer reported. "We've lost 7. Bennett nodded. "Begin withdrawal. We've made our point." The Guardian and the remaining Alliance ships vanished into quantum jumps, leaving the Council fleet damaged and confused. It was the first time in living memory that Council forces had faced defeat. Similar battles played out across a dozen systems over the next 3 years. The Council, with its thousands of worlds and vast resources, could not be defeated in a conventional war. But neither could they easily crush the Alliance, which fought unconventionally, striking where least expected and vanishing before overwhelming force could be brought to bear. At first, the Council attempted to isolate the rebellious species from the rest of the galaxy. They declared the Alliance illegal and prohibited any contact with its members. But their efforts backfired. Other species, long content to follow Council rule, began to question. If humans and their allies could resist successfully, perhaps the Council was not as all-powerful as they had claimed. On the neutral world of Centauri Prime, representatives from both sides finally gathered to negotiate. Ambassador Michelle Rodriguez, a veteran of Earth's diplomatic corps, led the Alliance delegation. The Council sent 5 of its eldest members, beings who had lived for centuries and rarely dealt with lesser species directly. "We don't seek to destroy the Council," Rodriguez stated in her opening address. "We seek recognition of our right to exist without arbitrary constraints. We seek acknowledgement that diversity, even uncomfortable diversity, strengthens us all." Negotiations were difficult and lasted for months. The Council initially demanded humanity's return to their solar system. The Alliance countered by requesting full membership for all its species. What broke the stalemate was the arrival of representatives from 12 other species, previously loyal council members, who now insisted on a resolution that respected the rights of all intelligent life. Your handling of the human situation has made many of us reconsider our place in the galactic order, the Teleran ambassador told the council leaders. A system that imprisons species out of fear is not one that will endure. In the end, the Treaty of Centauri Prime redefined galactic politics. The council would continue but reformed. The practice of species banishment was abolished. Earth joined the council as a full member, with alliance species gaining representation according to a new charter. It's not everything we wanted, Ambassador Rodriguez told Admiral Bennett as they watched the signing ceremony. But it's a beginning. Bennett, his hair now white after 3 years of war, nodded. It's enough. We've proven ourselves. The rest will come with time. 50 years after being told they were too dangerous to join galactic society, humans walked the corridors of the council chambers not as supplicants, but as architects of a new and more inclusive order. The old council species discovered, sometimes reluctantly, that human unpredictability and innovation brought benefits alongside challenges. Dr. Olivia Clark, now in her 80s, attended the centennial celebration of the Ghost's first flight, Beyond the Barrier. The original ship had been preserved and placed in a museum on Defiance, which had grown from a hidden colony to a thriving world at the crossroads of several trade routes. I never expected to live to see this day, she told the young students gathered around her. When we built that first quantum drive, we just wanted to be free. We had no idea we would change the galaxy. Among those students were not just humans, but young Nexari, Doru, Vrel, and even children of the original council species. The integration had not always been smooth, but it had progressed faster than anyone expected. Admiral Bennett, retired now but still respected throughout Alliance space, joined Olivia at the celebration. I never imagined this, he admitted, gesturing to the diverse crowd. I just wanted to protect our people. Olivia smiled. That's why we succeeded, Paul. We didn't just build an empire for ourselves. We built something better than what came before. Something with room for everyone willing to respect each other's freedom. As night fell on Defiance, messages arrived. From new expeditions pushing into unexplored space. Human ships crewed by members of a dozen species were mapping regions the Council had never bothered to explore. The universe, it seemed, was larger and more wondrous than even the ancient Council races had imagined. In the Council chambers on the central world of Unity, formerly known as Council Prime, the human representative took her place at the table, for the first time as Council leader, a position that rotated among all member species. Some of the older races had protested the elevation of such a young species to leadership, but the majority had supported it. We begin today a new chapter in our shared history, she addressed the assembled representatives. One where we move forward not in fear of our differences but in celebration of them, where we explore not just the stars around us, but the infinite possibilities of cooperation among all sentient beings. Far from Earth, on a small planet in what had once been forbidden space, a monument stood at the site of the first human colony. Its simple inscription summed up the journey. They tried to cage us, instead they freed us to become more than we ever dreamed possible. The very qualities that had frightened the Council, human adaptability, determination, and innovation, had not only ensured humanity's survival, but had transformed the galaxy itself, not through conquest, but through the stubborn insistence that there must be a better way forward, together. From a small blue planet once imprisoned in its own solar system, humanity had indeed forged an empire of its own. But it was an empire, unlike any the galaxy had seen before, one built on alliance rather than subjugation, on respect rather than fear, on the simple belief that all sentient beings deserved the freedom to reach for the stars.